my fellow wizards. Some of you may know that after the summer 2022 update, skeleton keys were changed pretty drastically. In order to create farming locations for the many different lore spellements and pack gears, the developers updated some existing bosses and also created brand new ones as well that can now be accessed with gold skeleton keys. Valuable spells like Ratspin, Deer Knight, and Pigsie, among many others, are all locked behind these bosses, so it's well worth the time and effort to farm them, if you can get enough keys, that is. In fact, as of today, there are currently 12 different gold skeleton key bosses, so the question is, where are they and which drops are worth your time? Because if you go in unprepared and unaware, you're generally going to have a very bad time. So to help you decide how to spend your keys wisely, I'm here to offer the ultimate gold skeleton key boss guide, which will show you how to find each boss, general strategies to counter their many cheats, and what types of spellements and gear each boss drops. Let's get started. Now, before we dive into the bosses, here are some quick tips you'll need to know. Most of these bosses have various level tiers you can fight them at, with difficulty increasing the higher your level is. However, the dungeons scale automatically to the lowest level player in a group, which wouldn't be an issue except if a higher level player is also in the same group and a part of a different level tier, the higher level player will receive no rewards like the normal spellements or pack gear, and instead get a participation trophy, which is currently a useless reagent. In order for everyone to get rewards, you need to have all players be in the same level tier, which can be frustrating when trying to form groups, since currently Team Up for Gold Key bosses has been disabled. So yeah, unfortunately, if you're a high-level player trying to help out a low-level friend, prepare to get no real drops yourself, because there really is nothing worse than grinding out an activity just to get a golden key, beating the boss, and then seeing this pop up on your screen. And it really doesn't help that the participation trophies are labeled in the most sarcastic way possible. We're really feeling the love, KI. Anyway, with that warning out of the way, let's kick things off with Baron von Bracken, a boss located in this corner of Tanglewood Way in Wisteria. He has 4 level tiers. Tier 1 is levels 1 through 35, Tier 2 is 36 through 50, Tier 3 is 51 through 109, and Tier 4 is from 110 to max. Be prepared to pile on the damage with this one, because Bracken is known for having a lot of health, from an eye-watering 50,000 at Tier 1 all the way up to a jaw-dropping 2 million health at Tier 4. Cheats include attacking your wizard if you place any feints on him, though Mass Feint does not trigger this cheat, and healing himself back to full health if you don't hit him for at least half of his health. And yes, this means at Tier 4 you need to be hitting for 1 million damage per hit or he'll heal himself. Well, I guess if you haven't got your 1 in a million badge yet, now is the time. So what's the strategy? Basically, just buff a lot. Like, a lot. Use every blade, trap, aura, and bubble at your disposal. Remember that many blades can actually stack, like using a regular blade, a sharpened blade, an item card blade like from a pet, and a TC blade, and you can do similar stacking with traps as well. And while you will take damage, you can technically still feint the boss. Since this will take a lot of time to set up, you may also want to be prepared with heals, shields, or weakness spells to defend yourself while you get ready for a big hit. I will definitely say at higher tiers, you're going to want a well-coordinated team to pull this off, but when you do, you'll be rewarded with the Bracken Clearer badge, as well as gear and spellements from the Wisteria Spellemental pack. Spellements from this pack include Angry Snow Pig, Ninja Piglets, and Pigsie, and the other drops include the Wisteria Warrior sets, Greenman Sapling Pet, aka I am Groot, and Fantastic Unicorn Mount from the Unicorn Horde pack. Up next is Bunferatu, who can now be found to the left in the upper halls of Darkmoor. Unlike other bosses on this list, he has only one rank 15 form, since you need to be at least level 100 to access Darkmoor in the first place. He will be accompanied by 3 random minions, and his cheats are as follows. At the beginning of round 1, he will cast Doom and Gloom, and will recast it if someone tries to replace the bubble. He will also cast Infection if a wizard attacks him, and follows a specific interrupt cycle. After every 2 rounds, he will cast Dark Pact, Deathblade, and Balance Blade, and every 3rd round, he will cast Call of Krulu. Thankfully, for this boss, you can generally follow the standard strategy of Blade, Feint, and Hit, and honestly, I was even able to solo him at level 160 when this footage was taken, so he's really not too bad. Once you defeat him, you'll get the badge Bunferatu's Downfall, a chance at the Tier 3 Darkmoor gear, and during the Halloween season only, 3 to 4 Headless Horseman spellements. Since he only drops mediocre gear most of the time, I'd only recommend spending gold keys on him when it's Halloween and you're going for the Headless Horseman spell. Although, technically, Loremaster also still drops this spell during Halloween as well, and she doesn't cost any keys to access, so it may be better to peace out and just farm her first. Drowned Dan is our next boss, and he can be found in the central part of the Arboretum in the Science Center of Celestia. He has 4 tiers, including the Tier 1, levels 1 through 50, Tier 2, levels 51 through 65, Tier 3, levels 66 through 109, and Tier 4, levels 110 through max. Now, Drowned Dan will have you working on your code-breaking skills because his cheats involve you figuring out his secret code in order to do damage to him. He'll start by casting a negative 300% invulnerability brace, which makes him immune to damage. You'll then need to defeat each of his 3 minions one at a time to learn a 4-number code. If you try to kill all the minions at once, Drowned Dan will restore their health back to 100%, so I don't recommend trying this. Each time you beat a minion, you'll get another part of the code, and once they're all defeated, you can now focus on the boss himself. Each number in the 4-number code you get indicates the pip cost of the spells you need to use on him in order. So if the code is 4736, you need to use in order a 4-pip, 7-pip, 3-pip, and 6-pip spell. These spells can thankfully be used in order over multiple rounds, but you may need to coordinate with your teammates so you all have spells of varying pip costs to cover all the potential number combinations, as at Tier 4, the pip cost can go all the way up from 0 to 11 with the Scion spells. If you do the code in the right order, the boss will remove his invulnerability and you can now attack him normally by blading, feinting, and hitting. Once you defeat him, you'll get the Undead Pirate's Scourge badge as well as drops from the Celestian Spelemental pack. Spellements include Celestial Intervention, Nautilus Unleashed, Ship of Fools, and Spiritual Tribunal, along with the 3 Celestial gear sets, the 3 Zorphy pets, and the Celestian mech mount. General Lightbane is next and can be found in this part of Camp Havoc in the last Wood of Chrysalis and comes in 3 different tiers. Tier 1 is level 1 through 50, Tier 2 is levels 51 through 109, and Tier 3 is levels 110 through max. And if you thought any of the previous bosses were convoluted to beat, well, I have some very bad news for you. General Lightbane operates under the ideas of opposites attract, or essentially, whatever the boss says, you do the opposite. Now, what does that even mean? When the fight starts, the boss will use a shadow spell and then summon one of 12 potential minions, and which one he picks will determine what spells you will need to use. Each minion is related to a different spell type, which the boss will also call out when they're summoned, and essentially, you need to cast the opposite spell type to the minion. So if the boss summons the Trapper Shrike and says, "Beware, my thrall, of jinxes," we know that means we need to cast a spell that is opposite of a jinx, which in this case is a positive ward. If you can do this correctly, the boss will gain backlash and potentially take damage once their shadow spell runs out, and the minion will lose 20% of their full health, which means you need to do this 5 times to kill the minion. Each minion will also be swapped out if not killed after 2 rounds of being active, which can make this boss rather difficult to solo since you need to quickly build up backlash in order to whittle its health down. This is honestly a situation where you'll probably want a full coordinated team, as you'll need to carry all the potential different spells you might need, and some schools simply don't have all the types covered. Like, only Ice can learn the spell Taunt, which is needed for the Mollifying Sentinel minion. I definitely recommend having a guide open when you're running this so you can quickly check what type of counter spell to use for each minion. Here's a very rough guide for what spells counter each type, but the wiki also has a full reference list if you need it. In addition, you may want to pack spells that can serve multiple functions at once, like packing the Golem spells that can both do damage and cast shields at once so you have more coverage with less spells. I'm gonna be honest, this is definitely one of the trickiest bosses in the game, so definitely go in prepared and with a plan and eventually get his health down enough to win. For defeating him, you'll get the main Lightbane Bane badge, as well as drops from the Burrower's Rebellion pack. Spellements include the 7 different school variations of the Divum spells, the 7 school gear sets from the pack, as well as the amulets, rings, wands, and decks, along with the dual Dragonflyer, Monarch Butterfly, and Stonehopper mounts. You also have a chance to get the reagent Spore Caps, which are used at the nearby vendor, Brisby Burrowcraft, to craft specific gear pieces from the pack as a pity system. High Loremagus is a new boss that essentially replaces Loremaster, and you can find her sigil on the left-hand side of the library in the Athenaeum of Dragonspire. She has 3 tiers, Tier 1 for levels 1 through 50, Tier 2 for levels 51 through 109, and Tier 3 for levels 110 through max. Now, High Loremagus is the epitome of the devs encouraging dual schooling, whether you like it or not. At the start of the first round, she will cast a negative 200% accuracy aura of your native school that lasts for 99 turns, and if you try to replace the aura, she'll just recast it. In addition, if you place a feint on her, she will cast Camp Bandit on you as punishment, though a max feint bypasses this cheat. Essentially, your strategy is then to equip gear that boosts damage other than your native school and use only spells from that secondary school to beat her. In my case, I just got Bizarre gear for my Life Wizard and picked Myth because it does boosted damage against her, but you can pick any other school you want. You'll then want to pack any spells you have from that school and likely buy TC for school-specific blades and traps, or use more universal ones like the elemental and spiritual school blades and traps or balance blades to boost your damage. Then it's just a matter of blading, trapping, and attacking normally, just with a different school than your native one. Once you defeat her, you'll earn the Loremagus Master Badge and have a chance at drops from the Keeper Spellamental pack. Spellements include Brimstone Revenant, Lore Master, Luminous Weaver, and Keeper of the Flame, as well as the Golden, Violet, and Jade gear sets and wands, with the Jade set in particular being popular among dedicated healers. You can also get the Emberstone Tiger Pet and the Blue Dragon and Faithful Dragoness mounts, although I will point out the Blue Dragon can also be bought from the Crown Shop for 85,000 gold. Ixcax Cursedwing can now be found to the left-hand side of 3 points near the entrance to the Maw and comes in 4 different tiers. Tier 1 for levels 1 through 50, Tier 2 for 51 through 95, Tier 3 for 96 through 109, and Tier 4 for 110 through max. Ixcax has 3 main cheats to worry about. If an ally or enemy is defeated, she will cast Berserk on herself while the remaining minions cast Fortify. If you place a feint on her, she will counter by placing a feint on your wizard in return. And finally, at the end of every 5th round, she will cast a Cleanse Ward spell that removes all negative wards from her team, as well as cast a Storm School Mass Prism that converts any incoming damage into another school of damage. Basically, your strategy is going to be to blade up, trap, and hit like usual, but make sure you hit before the end of every 5th round when she will remove all the traps on her. Feints can be used, but you may want someone with high resist to place them, as she will counter with her own feint. Once you defeat her, you will get the Ixnay on the Ixcax badge, as well as drops from several packs. Spellements include Lord of Night, Savage Paw, and Winter Moon, and gear can be from the Spellamental Skyvern pack, including the gear and wands, as well as new Lost World gear, which is exclusive to Ixcax and has some interesting level 85 stats. You can also get various pets like the Baby Dactyl, Leaffoot, Life Scarab, Therizinosaurus and Velociraptor, and the Feathered Raptor mount. King Borr has been reworked for this update and now is only available as a gold key boss. You can find his sigil in Saverstead Pass in Grizzleheim under the waterfall near the central teleport hub. He now comes in 4 tiers. Tier 1 for levels 1 through 30, Tier 2 for 31 through 50, Tier 3 for 51 through 109, and Tier 4 for 110 through max. At higher tiers, King Borr will immediately cast a Shadow Sentinel that gives 75% intercept for damage, and if you're late to the fight, he will cast Medusa on you. In addition, if his minion, Grendelin, is defeated before King Borr, he will restore him back to full health. This cheat will still activate even if both are defeated in the same round. King Borr will also cast Cleanse Ward on any feints placed on him. For this fight, I recommend using the Beguile strategy, which involves casting Beguile on King Borr's minion and using the power of Fake Friendship to have him join your team instead. While Beguile is active, the Intercept will protect you from damage instead of King Borr. You can basically Beguile the minion on the first round, blade up to kill King Borr by the end of the second round, and then freely blade and feint to kill the minion once the boss is dead. Some extra tips include putting Aegis on your blades to prevent them being removed from potential earthquakes, and using Indemnity to place one feint on King Borr, which he won't be able to remove as it's protected. I will say at Tier 1, King Borr actually has no cheats at all, so if you want some really fast farming, you can aim for that level tier. Once you defeat him, you'll earn the badge Borr, What Was He Good For, and get drops from the Grizzleheim lore pack. Spellements include Grendel's Amends, Hammer of Thor, and Ratspin, and dropped gear include the Odin's, Allfather's, and Wotan's gear sets and wands, as well as the school Timeless gear sets, which are basically cosmetic school insignia gear pieces that otherwise only drop from the Stay Puft Marshmallow boss and Caramel. You can also get the 3 wolf variant, Nighthawk, Pesky Beetle, and Raven pets, and the Snowy Ram, Tawny Ram, and Raven mounts. Krampus is a special boss in that he's seasonal and is only accessible during the Christmas holidays, where his sigil appears in 4 locations: Ravenwood near the Ice School, Colossus Boulevard near the Central Teleport Hub, the center of the Celestia Base Camp, and near the southeastern docks in Walrusbrook Harbor in Polaris. Entering at any location doesn't affect the boss fight at all, so I'm not sure why KI did this, but hey, at least you have options. Krampus himself comes in 3 different tiers: Tier 1 for levels 1 through 50, Tier 2 for levels 51 through 109, and Tier 3 for levels 110 through max. Krampus has several cheats to be aware of. If you're late, he will cast a shadow version of Scald, dealing fire damage and a smoke mantle on the offending wizard. If a player casts a blade, Krampus has a chance to cast Steel Charm, which steals all blades from the wizard who cast the blade. If someone casts Feint, he will cast Cleanse Ward twice, which makes Indemnity ineffective for protecting feints. At the beginning of round 5, he will summon 3 random snowball minions, and whenever one is defeated, he will summon a replacement the following round. Finally, once Krampus has his minions, if there are any traps on him, he will cast Dimension Shift, which transfers all negative hanging effects on him to a random minion. You can essentially approach this fight like normal, blading up and trapping the boss as usual while just avoiding using feints. Ideally, you want to kill Krampus before the 5th round when he summons his minions, as he'll keep resummoning them until he's defeated. Otherwise, he will randomly steal blades, but it's not every time, so it's usually worth the risk to just blade up as normal, but you may want a backup hitter if he steals your main hitter's blades at the last minute. Once you defeat him, you'll earn the Had a Holly Jolly Yuletide badge and have a chance to get a variety of gear drops from the Yuletide pack, including the Winter Robe, Toy Soldier, and retired gear from the Raven's Horde pack. Krampus drops holiday spellements for both the Reindeer Knight and Krampus spells, as well as the Lump of Coal, Maple Moose, and Snowball pets, and various permanent candy cane mounts. If you head down to the right from the entrance to Aquila, you'll next find Lady Stonegaze's sigil. She has 4 different tiers: Tier 1 for levels 1 through 35, Tier 2 for 36 through 50, Tier 3 for 51 through 109, and Tier 4 for 110 through max. This is definitely one of the more interesting boss fights, since Lady Stonegaze will punish you severely for using your normal spells. She warns you on the first round that you should mind your gaze lest ye be turned to stone. If a wizard then casts any spell on her, she will polymorph the player into a statue for 99 rounds, and you and your teammates get to reenact that one scene from the Pokemon movie. The only way to break free is to find the single break free card in your new deck of 77 cards, all of which are pass cards except for the one you need. You'll then have to continually discard down to find the break free spell, which can take a while, so you'll want to avoid this cheat. So how do you damage her? Every other round, Lady Stonegaze will give any non-statue wizards a new blindfolded hit spell, which do various types of school damage. You'll need to use these to do damage to her rather than your traditional spells. Strategy-wise, your best bet is to buff up with various universal blades and auras like the spiritual and elemental blades, dark pact or balance blades, and damage auras like frenzy before hitting. Just remember you can't place any traps on Lady Stonegaze, as this will activate her statue cheat. After several buffed hits, she should go down without too much fuss. Once you defeat her, you will earn the Gorgon Grappler badge as well as drops from the Immortal Spellmental pack. Spellements include Athena Battlesight, Hephaestus, and Queen Calypso, while gear can be the various Aquiline Charioteer, Secutor, and Velite sets, along with the wands. You can also get the Bronze Golem, Golden Ram, and Lil Siren pets, and the Aquiline Dual Chariot mount. Lambent Fire is our next boss, located in the Crystal Caves to the left-hand side shortly after entering from the Catacombs in Avalon. He comes in 4 different tiers: Tier 1 for levels 1 through 50, Tier 2 for 51 through 85, Tier 3 for 86 through 109, and Tier 4 for 110 through max. And he's definitely a challenge with cheats that affect both blades and traps. Whenever the boss casts a damage spell, he will receive a Fire Spear. If any wizard casts a non-fire, non-universal blade, he will cast Brimstone Revenant on the receiver. In addition, if a player casts a universal blade, he will cast Steel Charm on the receiver, and any fire blades, including Elemental Blade, may also trigger this cheat. If a player casts a universal trap like Feint on the boss, he will cast Immolate on the caster, though Mass Feint and Mass Hex do not trigger this. When any of his minions cast a natural attack, he will cast Immolate on it and sacrifice 100% of its health, but he will also resummon all minions that were defeated at the end of every round. When all 3 minions are present, a Death Interrupt cycle will begin and repeat every 3 rounds. The first round, a minion will cast a Dark Pact on Lambent. The second round, the next minion will cast Sacrifice on the boss, and then at the end of the 3rd round, the 3rd minion will cast Cursed Juju on a random wizard, which gives a negative 90% damage to your next spell, so you'll hit like wet tissue paper. For this fight, you'll likely want a tank or healer, as your best option is to blade up a hitter with non-fire school specific blades while avoiding fire blades and universal blades, which he will steal. You can also trap freely, but be aware of the boss's tendency to cast Immolate on the caster. Be prepared for a battering, as Lambent will continuously cast damage spells on your team as you blade and trap to AoE and one-shot both him and his minions, so you may want to have someone responsible for healing or shielding the team. Once you defeat him, you'll earn the Lambent Stampiner badge as well as spellements from the Knight Spellmental pack and unique gear. Spellements include Burning Rampage, Catalan, Deer Knight, Handsome Fomori, and Sacred Charge, whereas drops include the new Lambent gear sets, which give some interesting level 70 stats. You can also get the 4 variations of the Minstrel Pet and the Bruin Ram, Swift Griffin, and White Stag mounts. The Spirit of Ignorance can be found immediately to the right when entering Crab Alley from Triton Avenue in Wizard City, and he comes in 4 different tiers. Tier 1 for levels 1 through 15, Tier 2 for 16 through 50, Tier 3 for 51 through 109, and Tier 4 for 110 through max. Immediately upon starting the fight, the boss will cast a negative 300% brace on himself and he will recast it if it runs out. If a player casts a blade, he will cast Enfeeble on the target, though multi-blades like Blade Storm will trigger only for the caster. If a feint is placed on him, he will cast a Sacrifice with plus 500% armor piercing to remove it, though Mass Feint does not trigger this. If a player casts a single target trap on the boss, he will use Cleanse Ward, and using any AoE trap spells will cause him to remove all traps from the caster rather than himself. If the boss's aura is removed with Supernova, the round after he will cast a 100% protected shield from the wizard school, as well as each time a damage spell is used against him, except for Balance, which he does not shield against. If a player tries to counter his shields with Steel Ward, he recasts any shields removed. In addition, every 5 rounds he will place a Deferred Overtime, dealing 100,000 shadow damage after 2 rounds on a wizard. Strategy-wise, you're probably going to want to have a Balance wizard with you who can cast Supernova or bring some TC, which, by the way, cannot be bought from the bazaar for some reason. It's officially your time to shine, boys.
Showtime.
One easier way to handle this fight is to blade up your hitters on the first round using protected Aegis blades, and then the second round have someone Supernova the boss to remove the aura, with the hitters all using AoEs on the same round so he doesn't have time to shield up. You can use Mass Feint to help with this, as it doesn't activate any cheats. If you do run into the issue of him shielding, another option is to use Prisms to change your damage to another school that the boss might not be protected from and hit again, this time hopefully killing him. Another thing to note is that at lower tiers, this boss's cheats are much more forgiving, so if you just want a spellements or gear for stitching, you may want to focus on a lower tier. Once you defeat the Spirit of Ignorance, you'll earn the Dispeller of Ignorance badge and spellements from the Ravenwood Rangers lore pack, along with unique gear. Spellements include Berry Surprise, Camp Bandit, and Splash Squatch, and gear includes the new Bard gear exclusive to this boss for all 7 schools, which takes the same appearance as the Elegant School insignia gear and is cosmetic only. You can also get the green and red ghost pets and the Snappy Lobster and Sea Turtle mounts. Finally on our list is Takanobu the Masterless, who was redesigned for this update but can still be found in the bottom southwestern corner of the Cave of Solitude area in Mushu, straight down from the Bluefish teleport. He now comes in 4 different tiers: Tier 1 for levels 1 through 45, Tier 2 for 46 through 50, which you have to admit is a weirdly narrow tier. KI really made a 5-level wide tier and went
Perfection.
Anyway, Tier 3 is levels 51 through 109, and Tier 4 is 110 through max. Takanobu can be a pain to deal with, so you definitely want to know his cheats ahead of time. First, if a player casts a blade, he will cast Disarm on the player who receives the blade, though if it's a triple blade like the Elemental and Spiritual blades, he'll only remove the last blade from each, so Fire and Life. And if you cast Blade Storm, he only removes it from the caster. If a player casts any type of Storm Shield, he will cast a Storm Prism on the player who received it. If Takanobu ends a round with 5 pips, he will cast Supercharge on himself, and if he has 6 pips, he will cast Dark Wind. Whenever a player attacks any enemy, one of Takanobu's minions will cast a relevant Spiritual, Elemental, or Unbalanced Diffuse on the caster, and they stack per hit, so an AoE will earn you multiple diffuses at once. Strategy-wise, you'll want to spam feints or other traps on the boss while also giving your hitters multi-blades like Elemental and Spiritual blades or Blade Storm, but remember that the Fire and Life blades will be removed from those sets. You can then use AoEs to take out both the boss and his minions in one go. Once you defeat him, you'll earn the Master of the Masterless badge and drops from the Ninja's Spellamental pack and unique gear. Spellements include Catch of the Day, Goat Monk, Ninja Pigs, and Samurai. You can also get exclusive gear and wands from the Takanobu sets, which give level 35 stats. In addition, you can get the Ruby Shenlong Dragon and Samurai pets, as well as the Bengal Tiger and Sea Turtle mounts. I will note that you can also buy the Bengal Tiger for 90,000 gold in the Crown Shop as an alternative. Alright, my fellow wizards, that was my ultimate gold skeleton key boss guide. In your opinion, which bosses are your favorite to farm and give the best drops? This video took a ton of time and golden skeleton keys to research, so if you found it helpful, please consider liking and subscribing, as it really helps me out. As always, I hope to see you out there in the spiral, and happy questing.